morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser. It is Wednesday. The Wednesday gang is back. Since it is Wednesday, I am back to being the number one dad. And the funny thing is, it is tea this morning because I have like a doctor's appointment later today. So I'm fasting just in case because the doctor always tells you when you go to the doctor you should have been fasting because we're going to give you, or we're going to have to. So I don't want to go back. So I'm premature fasting for the blood test. And I realized you can drink coffee or tea, but it's with no, like it has to be black, like no sugar, nothing. And I can't do that. I can do tea with no sugar and stuff, but not coffee. John is with us on a mellow midweek. Coffee with cream or sugar? What are we doing over there?
Yeah, just the coffee, just black today. Yeah, they have a lot to
do.
Do
You
that.
Normally drink the coffee black?
Yeah, I used to have it with milk, but then I just realized, like, what is the point, man? Like, what is the point?
What is the point? It's not as strong. I mean, I don't care about the strength, but
I mean, you have coffee. Yeah, you have coffee to keep you awake, though, right? So you want it to hit with maximum effect. At least that's like my dad's been getting on my ass for the last few years. Like, why do you still have it with milk? And I see it now. He opened my eyes. But,
wow, man, that's
yeah.
rough household there, Gordo. I mean, you're number two. I don't know if you're gonna have your kid be like, "You still putting milk in that thing?"
Yeah, I also drink mine with or just drink mine black. So I can't have
it
with
a good upbringing. Now I'm finding.
But yeah, no, I'm not feeling like the second greatest dad. My son's he's having a meltdown. Basically the same as Liverpool's meltdown. It's like coinciding with Liverpool's meltdown. The house is in complete chaos. He's in this like challenger phase right now. So like everything's a challenge. He's
pulling a Mo like on the sideline.
Yeah, I feel like you're gonna stop. He's like, I'm gonna go out and get a red card. And I was like, that's the one thing I told you not to do.
Oh God, how old now? Are we doing the terrible twos thing or what?
He's gonna be 3 at the end of May.
Okay. See, like they always talk about terrible twos. I don't know because we got girls or we got lucky or whatever, but we just did not have the whole oh my God, terrible twos kind of a thing. John, I bet you were a gem. No, John, actually, doesn't John look like he was like an easy kid? Or did you mellow out afterwards?
All right, I'll let you guys say what you think I was, then I'll give you the truth.
Well, we can't say that on air, but
I'd say it was a rebel.
Should I listen to you twats or listen to Billy Strings as Ryan? I think twat listening is way better. But okay, so what is the verdict over there? Were you good kids? Were you a pain in the ass?
My mom said I was a pain in the ass when I was a baby. I wouldn't let them sleep, not at all. Like
see,
the moment
baby doesn't count though, right? I mean, you're not in control of your crabbiness. Let's go to like these 2s and 3s and stuff like that.
2s and 3s. Yeah, it was a pretty active kid. Ran around, all that. Video games weren't too much of a thing back then when I was growing up, thankfully, right? Especially nowadays with the kids on the tablet and all of that. So, yeah, pain in the ass probably sometimes, but then like this show, I was mostly mellow, right? A good in between.
Okay. Right. So speaking of this, I mean, this is gonna look like a Monday now, but let's go totally off Liverpool topic because there's a couple of headlines I want to get to. But tablets at the dinner table, especially when it's like a huge pet peeve of my girls, mind you, like my daughters. They think that's like, and Layla was actually the other day saying, not only that, now kids have like the headphones and stuff too, like so they're totally disconnected from the rest of the table. Gordo, do you get the tablet out so that you can eat?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't have a tablet. So we that's a lie. He does have a tablet, but he does not use it. We tried to implement it one time, and he's just like not really interested. So we're gonna keep it that way. But at one point, like I do think we just had a conversation with one of my other friends about this, who has a young kid, and I'm like, at some point, it's gonna be a disadvantage if he doesn't use it. Because of the way that like school is now, he's gonna need to like learn it. So I feel like we're gonna have to implement it at some point, but right now, no, he doesn't use it. And I'm
okay with the tablets overall. Like if the time is controlled and stuff. The pet peeve is, like you go out to dinner or you're at the dinner and stuff like that, and like it would be like a group of 8 people in like a really like a fine dining environment, and like the kid, like the 6-year-old, is on like the tablet, almost like totally independent from the rest of the group.
Yeah, no, I can't.
It wasn't you, John.
I can't stand
that.
No, that wasn't me. Like back then, like even now, even though I have my phone check into it sometimes, to check some, messages and stuff like that. I try and keep it to the side as possible. I guess that it was just like conditioned to me as a kid, where if it's a dinner table, it's family time, you speak with your parents and all that. Well, I do come from a very traditional household, so I guess I kind of got that vibe with it. But I see. Some parents are very intolerant about it. Some are tolerant, like mine. Like, for example, if I have to do work and it like kind of carries on over to dinner, they're fine with it. But if it's like, oh, they just see me like watching some videos or something, my dad will be like, hey, like it's that hey that where
you're like researching for your next TikTok, like watching, trying to pick up some moves. Yeah,
it's like that hey where it's like a very passive hey, but then what it means,
Yeah.
So I get
implication, right?
Yeah.
Actually, those are the best though. Ryan says, I don't have kids, so we're crazy strict. Yeah, it does make it easier. It definitely does make it easier. Okay, let's get to some headlines. We'll start with this one, which is probably the biggest well, I guess let's start with the shortest conversation. So this got confirmed. I think this was like yesterday. That there will not be an end of season parade. I mean, at this point, it's kind of like a no-brainer, right, John? I mean,
yeah,
it would almost look like a little sad and pathetic if we did do a parade. I mean, and if we did it, it would just really be a club parade than a Liverpool parade.
Yeah, and I like how Club kind of mentioned, like, hey, I don't want this to be all about me. I feel like the celebrations that are inevitably going to come. At the end of towards the end of the last game of the season are enough for Club. We're probably going to be celebrating quite a few players leaving, like Thiago as well. Probably giving them like the jersey and everything, like we did with Keita and Wijnaldum, like we did a few years ago. Because I mean, he's probably not going to be signing.
Bunch of pictures of him like in the physio room, like
Keita, right. Just going like that with the head trainer. So yeah, I think it's unfortunately it's a good idea, and the fact that it's out of the question now means that we didn't make it in the 2 competitions we were going for out after the League Cup. So yeah, I kind of sent that headline begrudgingly because I do agree as well. If we push through it would look really sad. So like that's the ultimate piss take, like with Klopp leaving and all that, and then rival fans just laughing. Look at these guys.
Yeah, exactly. That was probably where I was at. Sergi says if we sell Nunez, we should have an open top parade all week. Depends on how much you get for it, I guess, to celebrate. But if it covers the cost of the parade, but I mean that's the thing, right? You might as well get a convertible to Klopp and have him drive around town as opposed to do a parade anyway at this point.
Yeah, and he wouldn't want to do that anyway. So the whole thing would be weird, right? It's like you're forcing him to go on a parade like that. And yeah, I think it just the message that having a parade for the League Cup would send to the rest of the league, especially like when we're gonna shake everything up, and next year might be difficult in transition. You don't want to put the blood in the water for the Sharks. You just you want to kind of divert it, right? It's just like you just see all the memes and all the hatred on all the things, and like look at what they're celebrating. This is pathetic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean that reenactments of Mo and Klopp and stuff like that on one of the buses, that would be like a good ordeal. But yeah, I mean, when I saw it, I was like, yeah, it goes without saying. I think if you won a double, it would be a different story, whether it's the league or the Europa or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it is going to be.
We actually did it a few years ago, right? We won the league.
When we did the FA and when we did the double. And I think that's, you're taking, that's a solid season. You went for a quad, ended up disappointing because we were going for the quad and, we only got 2 trophies kind of a thing. But aside from that, I think yeah, it is kind of like a no-brainer. I know people who were kind of thinking they're going to go to the last game to see Klopp and stuff, and I know people are spending a lot of money to do so. Figured, oh, I'll be at the parade as well, and I'm sure, like, especially if you're traveling from here and stuff like that, you're probably bummed out that there is no parade. But at the same time, like, would you really enjoy a parade like that? Aside from the club aspect of it, I don't think anybody is going to be like, oh, it's good times, So I think, it's a no-brainer for the most parts. This one that you sent earlier, I think, John, is John Achterberg is leaving after 15 years of service. This is more than John leaving, who is an important character there. Let's start with you, Goro, because I mean, you will remember that John, at one point, before Alisson came over, was a villain because he destroyed every goalie, like Mignolet and stuff like that. So this whole overblown, everybody's leaving, the entire staff is leaving, what are we going to do? We don't even have a secretary, kind of a panic, seems very unnecessary because context is very important. Like I say, John now is regarded as a great coach, but I know before Alisson came in, he was destroying every goalie somehow.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just the fact that it's another tiny little piece in a much larger like story of like basically changing the guards. And so, probably this would go under the radar. I think maybe on some of like the Liverpool fan pages and stuff, you'd see this, but like this is kind of like news now, like where all the other teams are kind of getting in. It's going on the BBC and it's being brought up because it's just one of those things that like, I'm sure if you open up like a BBC article or a Sky article about it, the first paragraph would be about him leaving, and the rest of the article would be about like Liverpool are losing this person, this person, this person, this person, and so like that's really the focus of the story. So I don't think it's little to do. I think, and it makes a lot of sense. Like when coaches leave, there's usually an overhaul of many positions. So it's not. I don't think it's anything unique or newsworthy.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually more shocked that because I forgot that he was there at that time when he was the one being blamed for Mignolet's form and stuff like that. So is it like too much of a overblown deal where people are like, I think we were talking about it the other day. Maybe it was Thursday, so maybe it was Overreaction Central. But like, so many people leaving and stuff like that. Like, we're gonna have shortage, so the coach is gonna have to also like do other work because we can't hire to replace these people. Everybody comes in with their own people. I'm sure, like probably Feyenoord is saying the same thing now, saying, well, 20 people are leaving with him, because usually when you go, you bring your own people. Similar to, Edwards hiring his own people. The manager hires his own guy. That guy hires his own assistant. So this is like a natural progression. Our people are kind of overreacting with the amount of change.
Yeah, I think that it's to an extent. I sent it primarily because I'm just surprised because Achterberg he transcended eras. Like he was there towards the end of he was there at the start of the Hodgson era. He was there for Kenny's short-lived tenure. He was there for Rodgers, and he was there for Klopp. So I was kind of surprised, and it's just really sad because like I'm gonna throw my hands here. I bought into the narrative that he was a reason that Pepe Reina was declining. I bought into the narrative that our goalies were not as good because of the coach, because he's an easy finger to point at. But listen, he's come across as such a great guy. Like the goalkeepers rave about him. Alisson, Kelleher, Adrian, even they've said that, he's really keeping the squad together, keeping them in good spirits and stuff like that. So he's going to be a big miss. I'm just surprised, considering his trend of transcending eras, that he's not going to be transcending another one. So I guess, Schlatt is probably going to be bringing in his own guy here. It's just a shame because I know his role isn't as publicized as, let's say, as a Pep or a Peter Krawietz or whoever, but he could be a good bridge in the gap, right, for eras because he's been through it all and seen it all in a sense. So he can be that kind of force to keep the players together because let's be real, guys, there are going to be periods next year where we're going to be like, what the fuck is happening? Like, because it's a new regime, and obviously we shouldn't try and lose our heads, but it's just human nature. And having a guy like Achterberg could be a big deal, but obviously, unfortunately, it's out of the question. So that's why I thought it was pretty interesting. you know.
And I mean, this could be the fact that, he has been around different managers, Gordo. It could be one of those situations. And if you've been I mean, 15 years, I don't know how old he is, but obviously if he's been in 15 years, he's been at some age. But it could be one of those instances where he's like, I'm not going to go. I'll go too, because I'm not going to deal. Because you know how it is every time there's a new boss and there's a new regime, everything changes. And sometimes it's like, oh, it's a nice, refreshing change. But if you've gone through, initially he went through a bunch of them, but 9 years is the same thing. I'm really not in the mood for like a whole new overhaul. I'll just leave too, kind of a thing. I mean, it could very well be that instead of us saying go.
Yeah, and that's what I think it really boils down to. Because also the longer you are in a position or in a career, the less okay with taking bullshit you are, right? It's just like, I've done this for too long. I can't do this again. Like, I've been here for 15 years. Everything's been the same. And like, as you get older, you get more crotchety. Like, I'm also doing the same thing where like my company just switched names, and like the whole thing is like, it's been the same name for 7 years, and now,
I'm still signing up with the old company.
Yeah, exactly. I've
Is it
literally
bad that this early?
Go ahead, John.
No, is it bad that this early in life, Gordo? I totally get what you mean. I'm feeling what you feel. So.
That's been the funniest thing is watching John grow right in front of our eyes. Not only like with Liverpool stuff, but now that he's like managing and training interns and stuff like that. He's become this get you.
It's being a middle manager makes you just the most bitter human being of all time, because you are fed bullshit and then you have to turn around and pretend like you care about the bullshit to get your guys to care, right? So it's like you're here, it's coming in one ear, and you're like, this is bullshit, and it's like, wait a minute, now I have to be the cheerleader to like disseminate this bullshit and make it seem like I care, when like my guys know that I don't care about this. So like, you just become a terrible.
That is the worst thing, right? You're like, oh, you gotta be shitting me. You're like, guys. Yeah.
You got this great... I know last time it only took 4 clicks, and this time it's gonna take 8, but the customers are gonna love it. It's gonna be great.
The website is faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I think 6 passwords now instead of 4. It's gonna be perfect.
It could be as easy as that, where he's like, every time new guy comes in, like, there's a lot of stuff changing, right? I mean, it's ultimately the same gig, but it's a different thing. Ryan says John is my favorite, which is heartbreaking to the rest of us. But
right. I knew that.
I appreciate it, Ryan. It's my guy.
Hey, everyone, and Gordon.
The Polish Prince is in the house. Says what John doesn't know is what the fuck is happening will actually be referring to us winning every match 3-0 and wrapping the league up by January. That would be a nice what the fuck is happening.
That's like Causey levels of positive right there.
The head of fitness and conditioning is saying he should be the first one to go.
Hey, and that's kind of like blaming Octoberg for our goalkeeping problems, where it's just so happens that the players are actually really injury prone. Like, come on, man. Thiago has been injury prone in Barcelona, has been injury prone in Bayern. He's been injury prone at Liverpool. Like, I don't think it's the trainers who's the problem here now. Right?
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, is that scouting then? Like, we knew Thiago was like that, and we kind of rolled the dice. It is what it is.
But if he was a really good trainer, he would have fixed the problem. So,
there you go. See, John, there you go. In your face. See, that's good middle management right there. So no excuses, people. Get to work.
I just realized on Sir Z's comment there, I guess we'll find out next year if it's really Klopp's style that's wearing out the players as much as it is, like if we're probably going to have less injuries, it could be luck, but then obviously, Schlott is here for the long haul. We'll have a pretty good sample size to see if Klopp's style is really what's taking a toll here. I just realized. So
thing is, I usually say what he is right more than he is wrong. Those two statements contradict themselves, don't they?
I mean, I think I'm a good...
what he's saying is everything he agrees with or everything he believes is wrong. It's a coherent statement, and I understand what he's saying. Like, I don't agree with anything you're saying, but you're right.
Because I'm usually wrong.
my ultimate goal is to get Ryan on the gravy train. So
will be tough to judge next year because there'll be more games now. Because I mean, that's the thing. Maybe it is the system, like you're saying, John, right?
Mhm.
And I think, especially in the past, I personally blame the lack of rotation and sticking with the same 12, 13
Right.
people. And you could kind of say, oh, he didn't have the squad depth. But at the same time, I mean, when he didn't have the squad depth earlier this year because of injuries, he trusted the kids and put them out there. Maybe that's Klopp changing and learning, or maybe I'm leaving anyway. I don't give a fuck. Let's see what happens with these kids. Or like understanding that you can't just like play the same people freaking like 300 minutes a week and then expect them to perform the same way and stay like Matip is a good example, I think. I mean, here's another thing, right? You know, a certain player when you get him, when he's in a country where there's only, I think, what was Matip? Stuttgart?
He was
Schalke?
Schalke.
Okay. So, you know, it's not like he's in the Champions League all the time. So his body is used to playing once a week all his career. And because they only have one domestic cup and stuff like that, you bring him over here and then you're playing every 3 days and you see that he can't do that. Stop freaking doing that and trotting him out there until he gets injured and then put somebody else. And maybe that's when we should have rotated and play different people and use them sparingly and stuff like that. So there's some, I mean, if we've criticized, I know if I've criticized Klopp, it's been mostly about that, the lack of rotation and trusting in the subs coming in too late and stuff like that. But have no fear, there'll be a lot of subs to go around because people, the salary cap is in the house. Pretty soon, we're going to have commercial breaks too. This soccer thing is going way too American, way too fast over here. So aside from the comedy that Chelsea is like, we don't even know. We have no opinion on this. That's always like pathetic by itself. But Gordo, the issue was not really the system. You can put all the systems in place you want. I don't think we necessarily had a problem with the system. We had a problem with its monitoring and enforcing and stuff like that. So if I mean you can come up with a different system, if it comes with built in with other loopholes, what's the hell is the difference?
Yeah, there were things in place. That's why there's 115 breaches of the system that we put in place, right? It's not just like, oh, I think there might be 115 instances where they may have done something that we don't agree with. There was no breach. They're calling it breaches, which means there was already something in place and it was disregarded. The other thing that they don't mention, and obviously it's probably something that's in the works, so it's probably not even thought about, but the spending gap or the cap, might be bigger than most of the clubs can afford anyways. So yes, it might be all for show. There might be only 6 or 7 teams that would be able to hit that cap, anyways. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see that because there is a huge obviously gap in what teams can afford, and you can set the cap to make it fair, but then it's still not going to make it fair. It's not going to equal it out because there's teams that might never ever hit it. So I don't know. I don't like it. I'm with you. It's getting too American. There's a lot of things about American sports that I dislike, and this is definitely one of them. So I'm not super thrilled to see it.
I just don't feel like it's solving anything. It's just like, let's try some new different loopholes, guys. Like the old ones are getting, and then, we started catching people. We don't know how many points to deduct. Let's start a new system where it takes a while to catch people. I mean, John, the whole, basically the concept is they got the okay now, except, Manchester clubs and Chelsea, who's like, and I don't know what, like Villa is in there too. They're like, yeah, what they said, but it's not, basically they got the okay to go back and they're gonna now crunch numbers now that the system is approved and come back with it. And I, like when I was like looking into it and like listening to it about it and stuff, like it was on Sky Sports and shit, and they were talking about agent fees and stuff like that. The more stuff you throw into this, and because I obviously it's not like American sports where you can just do salary, because there's a way around that too, like signing bonuses and crap like that. So what the heck is going to change if they set up an amount that's high, but then it includes this, but they're gonna have like a different fee. They were like, oh, we're paying him $20 million to show up this weekend to do a promotion. It has nothing to do with something else. There's always going to be like loopholes they're going to come up with.
Yeah, it's a good question. And before I get on my tangent here, Ryan's question about commercial breaks already happening. If y'all didn't catch it, the Everton game, right? Peacock just stopped abruptly midway to show a commercial, people. In the second half, 50 minutes played. Like, I cannot.
I'm really blaming like the director or somebody pressed the wrong button there. Because I saw like 2-3 commercials to the point where I thought I clicked something because I was working at the same time. I thought I clicked on something wrong, and then when I saw the outrage on Discord, I'm like, oh, okay, good. It's not me.
Right. I was just like, really? It's becoming more an American each day, right? Like, we even have commercials during the middle of the game. Like, freaking hell. Imagine if we scored a goal or conceded during that period, right? That would be
it's a very Todd Bowley move, right?
Yeah.
It's just like,
yeah.
what are we gonna miss? A couple goal kicks? Who cares?
A couple goals.
Whatever.
It's just a corner kick. You guys will get over it. It's like
I
have to get you guys the room today, dude. The way it's going, but go ahead.
I always go ahead, John. Go.
No, sorry, Gordon. Go ahead.
No, I think that we did something terrible as a group of fans in that we created all this fervor and anger, and I know we talked about it at the beginning of this year and even last year, that World Cup in Qatar. You know, for 4 or 5 years, how corrupt it was, and there's all these humanitarian issues, and this is outrageous, and there's all this corruption, and then we all just watched it, right?
Yep.
And I think that sent to the powers that be that don't actually care about the sport and care about money, that sent a huge message. It doesn't fucking matter what we do. They're still going to watch. Literally, we can have people like stoned in the street for being gay, and like completely corruption within the city of like how they obtain this, all the humanitarian issues with building stadiums, and these people know about all this and they still watched it. They still came, they still filled the stadiums out. It doesn't matter what we do, they're gonna watch. And I think that and of course, like, I was one of them. I watched too, so I'm just as much as fault. I'm not standing on a soapbox, but I think we're gonna see the negative impacts of that for years to come.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Go ahead, John.
No, yeah, I was about to say with the whole cap issue, it's not the money that's being spent usually. Like, the Premier League's actually already doing a job in terms of like monitoring what's going, what's spending what, like who's spending over, and stuff like that. It's, for example, for Manchester City, it's where the money is coming from, right? You can't put a system here, but then if City's continuing to get like all these funding from all these questionable sources, then what's the point? So it's like putting a band-aid over a massive wound again. Like, this is like the third payment structure. Yeah, it's like the third payment structure reform, and then like what? It's just going to be the whole same deal. I'm surprised though that Manchester United was against it, probably because they love to spend quite a bit of money, and maybe they felt like, oh, this cap is a bit restrictive in terms of how much we spend. Yeah. But from a team that has, I would like to believe, legitimate sources of funds, right? I was just surprised they'd be against it. Chelsea being neutral is just on brand. They've been indecisive all season about how they're going to approach this year, so it's just on brand. So
they're like, we're going to get back to you guys. Let me see if there's a loophole in this, right, and then we'll be back. Can we do 15-year contracts on this thing? Because we read the fine print. But here's my thing. I mean, the salary cap concept in the U.S., right, is designed to keep everybody equal, regardless of, so like, the Cowboys, 49ers, whatever, who have a larger fan base, can, on paper, have the same chance as the Jaguars to ultimately win. I mean, that's kind of like the concept. So anybody has a chance if they spend wisely that cap. But that's not the same. I mean, that's not what they're going to be doing unless, like, you were saying, Gordo, that amount is really low. So either you're going to bring everybody down to Luton Town's level,
Right.
and say this is what you guys can spend because that's only what Luton can spend, or then they're gonna come up with like a bogus number that's really high that Luton is going to say, well, that's great, but we don't have that money to spend, and they're gonna be like, what are you gonna do? Sucks to be you. So it doesn't really change that, but within the bigger teams, does it create any balance, or is that a way it can create any balance?
No, because like John said, it really the issue that is with Man City is where it's coming from. Not that it's just not legitimate forms of income. So why would they, if that is actually happening and they're aware of it, then why would they stop that? Be like, all right, this is what we're going to show them.
It's not going to matter where the money is coming from. They're going to be like, we don't care if you're selling crack around the corner. You have 100 million to spend. Right? So it doesn't matter if you're saying oil or crack or what, potatoes. Doesn't matter. You have 100 million to spend. Because it's almost like the Premier League is saying, we're never going to monitor how this money is coming in. Let's monitor how much they can spend.
To be fair, City's they're at least they're appearing to spend within the limits of the current model, right? By selling players, right? Like obviously when they got Haaland and stuff, everyone was like, here's City spending again. But to their credit, they sold Gabriel Jesus and so on and so forth to fund that deal. So it's looking like they're working within the they're working within the current model, but it's where the money is coming from is the issue. So I think it could help to an extent. Like, for example, a Man United, they can't spend, like, let's say the cap's 100 million, they can't spend their typical 150 every transfer window. That is where I could see it could help. But like in terms of like issues surrounding, let's say, Man City, who's likely going to win their what is it, 6 out of 7? Yeah, 6 out of 7 Premier League. It's that's where the attention should be, because this is the team that's making your league look like a farmers league. So again, that isn't the issue. The issue is looking at the funds. Like, okay, fine, it might solve a few things, but the things that it's solving isn't necessarily the biggest problem, of the league. I would say.
I think, so this says the cap won't work because it's a percentage of what the lowest club made via TV revenue. So they're going to take that, and there's going to be that's very gray in terms of, and they don't even know how they're going to come up with this number. And I think that's what's being figured out now, is how to come up with the number. So if they go by the TV money, then that's fine. I think the issue we have now, Gordo, is they're basing it on the club's income. So that's when, like what John is saying in terms of where the money comes from, makes a difference, because then, they're not saying like City, and that's what the breaches are, most of them, is they have sponsorship deals. Like this anonymous person is giving us 100 million to have their name inside of our socks, because they care so much. So as you're taking the sock off, you'll be able to see their name, kind of a thing. And then there you go, it's 100 million. It looks legit, but it's bullshit. So that's the issue. So this one would kind of eliminate that. But now, is it going to be the spending part that's going to be basically manipulated, is what I'm getting the sense of.
Well, that could be an indication of why United are against it, because I mean I always say this, it's just because it's just so funny, but United have an official tractor, like the official tractor of Manchester United. Like, what? That doesn't why do you need an official tractor? So maybe that's why they're against it, because they're like, wait a minute, you're gonna there's like a defamation of sponsors. That's why
I'm sorry, I can't get over it. Fucking hell.
It's ridiculous. It's so dumb. It's like, I've been thinking of buying a tractor. Is there?
I want him to pull, have a trailer in the back, and the tractor pulls the starting lineup to the field. It's like
look how much shit it can carry. This thing can haul as much shit as we got, right?
There's room for Anthony in there. Get him in there.
Yeah, get him in there.
Down to your shit ball.
Most of them won't work because of legal issues. Players Union have already rejected it and said they will fight it in courts, because that kind of, I guess you're an NBA guy there, John. So it does limit how much obviously the cap would be, because you can't pay. It's almost like the NBA max contract. I mean, you can give a max contract, but you can't. The keyword max. You can't. Somebody else can come in and be like, "Oh, we'll give you more." No, you can't. That is the max contract. Obviously, players' union is not going to be happy with that, because then you're going to have max guys. Like Mo is going to be your max guy. Holland is going to be their max guy. And obviously, if there's a cap, and that's how the system works, you can only have so many of those guys. Otherwise, you're not going to have a squad.
Yeah, it's an issue. It's a complicated issue that's going to be hopefully solved over the next few months. But again, it's really not tackling the actual problem, is it? Like, obviously, for context, we're looking at it from the context of a big club trying to win the league, trying to compete year after year. It's probably a different perspective if we're talking about a mid-table, if we're like a mid-table club, like a Fulham or a West Ham or something like that, in terms of how it affects them. Do you guys think it might actually help these, like, let's say the West Hams or the Villas, or I wouldn't say Villa because they're kind of like upper middle tier, but let's say the West Hams, the Fulhams, to like retain their players more, knowing, like, let's say, what's his name? Who was the midfielder from Wolves who went to Man City this year? I forget his name.
Nunez?
Yeah, Nunez. Let's say, right, like Man City couldn't offer him the contract that he was given to because of the cap, right? In theory, right, it should have these players stay with their parent clubs more because of this. Whereas Wolves can offer him, let's say, a max or a close to a max deal, stay there rather than going to Man City and take lesser money. Although he'll be given trophy, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Gordo, I'll pass it to you because that's a good one. And I have to think about it, so I'm going to pass it to you.
I like that if they have the funds, which is the other problem, is like they might not be able to afford giving someone a max contract.
That's what I was gonna say. Good call. See, Mateusz does this to me all the time. Okay, go ahead.
Like, yeah, like we can have you on this team, but we're definitely not going to win anything because we don't have enough money to buy other key players to make this a marketable squad. You know, like you're the star, and we're gonna have to fill it with crappy players because we are wasting all of our money on your contract. So I don't.
Yeah, that really depends on the cap, right? If the cap is within your, like, out of your reach, then what good is a cap?
Exactly.
And if it's too low to suit the Wolves, then that's why Manchester's are probably against it. But wouldn't we be against it as well? Maybe not FSG, everybody's going to say, but like, wouldn't we be against it as well if it was almost like too low and to make the playing level, more
I actually think that Edwards is licking his lips with this because he loves the Moneyball model, right? Of trying to find players for absolute bargains. And if he's given like a threshold to work with, right? Because that was FSG's main issue in terms of wanting to go to the Super League, because the rules for certain clubs, the rules that Liverpool adhere to don't apply to certain clubs, right? Like the Man Cities and the stuff like that. So imagine giving like Edwards, who's such a genius in terms of getting bargain buys, an actual threshold to work with. He'd work wonders, I feel. So I feel like he's licking his lips with this.
Definitely agree with that. Like if he was, almost as if it was a tournament type thing where everyone's got the same parameters, he's always going to come out on top.
Yes,
so
like a fantasy draft.
Right. Yes. So I guess in that sense, I'd like it. The other thing too, and I think more cynically, is like we looked around the room at which clubs were against it. We're like, well, I'm not siding with those ones. Both
right.
anything that they hate. Yeah. What?
Why is Villa in there? Like, I found that them to be the really oddballs. I mean, we already made fun of Chelsea. You can tell Man City. You can tell United because they're like, but who's gonna pay Rashford? But like, why is Villa like? Yeah, they're right. This is bullshit.
Maybe they came in late, and then the dude who was representing United and City were like, "Hey, you agree, right?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess." Like the guy came in late.
The chair next to the United guy. What are we talking about? Just disagree. Like they're
yeah. Trust me. Trust me.
He's a Hallmark Channel villain. He has to go against it. Look at him. He's a villainous character. He literally coaches the villains. I mean, like it's so obvious.
Oh God, Rice says City maybe fuck next year. They may be. Yeah. By the way, the hearing is near. People, here.
Woohoo.
The hearing is near. Supposedly, yeah. I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it, and
Yeah.
I'll believe punishments when I see it. But it's going to be. Let me ask you guys this: what they've done in the last couple of months. Does it almost like help them in a way how they handle the city thing, Gordo, or have they, dug a bigger hole, like 6 points here, 2 points there, and stuff like that? Because they're like, oh, that was one. This is a lot. 2 times 115, or they've kind of like it almost feels like it's gotten less and less and less. So they're gonna be like, oh yeah, it's gonna be 12 points from the season they won by 14 points. So nothing actually happened. Let's move on.
I think it's more of that, right? I think like it's strategically done. It's like like the Kennedy assassination. It's like we're not gonna release any of this stuff until everyone's dead, right? Everyone's forgotten. Everyone. There's been enough time where we've accepted that City's really good and they've won all these trophies, and then we're gonna release. Oh yeah, by the way, a lot of them were illegitimate, but we're just gonna put a little asterisk there. And Klopp's now gone, Pep will be gone, most of those players will be out of there, and then something will happen, and everyone's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's just words at that point to me. The other thing, though, because I was having this argument with my dad, and he pulled up something that was like, I don't know, maybe he was like grasping at straws, but he's like, "What about the 1911 Black Sox? We still remember them more than 100 years that they cheated, right?" So like everyone calls them. Maybe we just call them. Maybe we call them a name. Because he's like, you don't forget. He's like, you weren't alive. You didn't watch them, but that they cheated and they won the World Series illegitimately. So maybe there's something to that. But I would be shocked if there was a punishment. And then if there's a punishment, I think there'd be enough time and most of the key players are out that it wouldn't mean anything. Like, what are we going to do? Bring Klopp back and be like, hey, you would have won. It's like, yeah, we already know. We know that,
Yeah.
And that's the problem. I think I've talked about this before. Those moments are taken away, so it doesn't matter if they're like, "Yeah, we're taking the titles away." Okay, great. I was still disappointed that day on the last day of the season. Blah blah.
Right.
So those are not coming back. And what do you think, John? Because that's like Ryan and Gord over here drawing a really pessimistic, depressing picture. Because if nothing happens out of this, because then I honestly feel bad more for teams that are being punished right now if this goes unpunished. Because I'm sure, we haven't been punished, and we should be thankful that we're not even concerned about any of these things. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you want to be in a fair environment. You want to make sure everybody is under a fair environment, and clearly they're not.
Yeah, as much as I want to side with Gordo and Ryan here, there should be one. They already set the precedent with Everton and Forest. Again, should doesn't mean there would be, unfortunately, because money talks. And unlike Everton and Forest, City have a lot of that. So whatever it is, though, again, I agree with you, Tim, and Gordo. It's pretty much immaterial at this point. Like, the moment has long passed. Like, someone's going to go to Klopp and say, hey, you should have gotten 3 titles instead of 1 or some shit like that. Klopp's just going to be
retirement, man.
Klopp's just going to be like,
are we going to update our trophy wall? Like, I don't think so, right?
No. I think the best thing that they should do there is just probably strip City of the title, but then don't name the runner-ups as actual winners, because again, the moment has passed, and then what's going to happen? Like, it's probably weird. Like, technically, in terms of fielding players, like, on the field, we didn't win it, right? So that's my whole thing. Regardless of how the players were obtained, like the pitch battles, if we're taking that into account solely, like, we didn't win it. So it would be a bit like the semantics involving it would be a bit off. Right? If, let's say, we were champions in 18-19, but we lost to City on their ground in that defining game, right? So it's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great point, because we lost to those teams. They were assembled illegally,
right?
But they were the better team. And no, I don't know, how deep does it run? Were these players knowingly taking the cuts or whatever? I don't know. Were the deals involving some of this money? Then it might get a little more like, all right, well, the players are also kind of at fault too. But I agree with you, John. Like in terms of like head-to-heads, actual on-field battles, like that team beat us. And whether
Yeah, but
or not
that was an illegal team. That's almost like saying, "Oh shit, they had 12 guys on the pitch all this time, like nobody saw it." Of course, they beat these guys because they had 12 guys on the pitch. Kind of an ordeal.
but it just feels weird.
Yeah,
like,
it just feels weird, Tim.
I get that part. I get that part. But at the same time, historically, like we're not gonna be like, "Yay, we won" and have a party. But 40 years from now, when they look back historically, shouldn't those titles just instead of be like absent, shouldn't they go to the person that would have gotten them if this illegal team wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a bridge that's going to be crossed when we get there, if we get there. I mean, I preferably, for me at least personally, right, I'm just speaking for myself here, the moment has passed. So even if it was given to us, I'd be like, I mean, unlike Sir Z here, who would, be celebrating having his own open top parade, it's past, man. I've expended.
Yeah, I don't know what his own open top parade is, and I don't know if anybody wants to see that, but
I'll go.
Yeah, I'll go, to be fair. Like
to find out what it's all about.
Right.
But I think like the VAR mistakes, I mean, I feel like that's, we've already lost titles to that, and I would have celebrated them if they went the other way.
It's like
I don't see like the Juventus expense is a good one because they did, I think, give it to the other guys, and like even though they're not going to celebrate it and go out and like have the the parade and everything, I'm more like talking about it historically. I don't think like any fan that went through the season is going to make a difference. But you look like 40 years from now, you're going to be like Spurs cabinet is still going to be empty, and you're going to have more trophies that like you were like given, because it's gonna be like, hey, like yes, they should have won those. And then John is gonna be there, even more cynical and crap. I definitely won't be there in 40 years, but John will be there, and he's gonna be like, yeah, we couldn't enjoy it then, but god damn it, they were ours.
That's one of the best parts is like the only time Tottenham finished in second, City didn't win.
Jesus, bro. I feel bad.
It doesn't get any sadder than that.
Yeah, like I know a couple of Spurs guys, and they're decent folk. Like I swear, I don't know. I wish Tottenham to get like at least a legitimate trophy over the next few years, because at this point it's just sad. I don't know.
It is. It's a good one. You know what? Here's the funny thing though. City could give us Guardiola as compensation.
Hell no.
How many Liverpool fans would be for that?
I would take him. I would take him.
I mean, I would take him as a manager, but how many would be like?
Yeah, not as a player. I don't want him on the field.
Like, do you really like blame this whole City thing on Guardiola?
If there was there is some shady shit going on there, right? Like, I feel like it's impossible that he's not aware, is he?
Yeah,
it's impossible. Like, he chooses the players who to get, and he knows how they're funded. He's being made aware of the financial situation of the club. You mean to tell me that it hasn't crossed his mind one bit? Nah, impossible.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're given the, I don't know, you're at work. I mean, if they give you as a company car, like a freaking Ferrari, Gordo, you're not going to be like, can we afford this though? Because I don't know, you're going to be like, sounds good, and you're just going to drive off.
I bet it's an inside joke. I bet he doesn't attend any meetings purposely for that. So like when they pass each other in the hall, he's like, plausible deniability. I'm not on any of the meeting records. I was never
right.
I could, but like the other thing is because John made a point, and I'm like, he probably has thought about it, like lied away. But look at the teams he's managed. This might just be normal business for him.
Yeah.
Like, this is like how all the teams operate. Like he probably has never been in a situation where stuff like this wasn't happening. So he might not think about it. And also, if I was him, and also I was, his boss, I wouldn't want him in it either. Maybe that was part of a stipulation. Like, you do whatever you need to do. I'm not attending any of the meetings. I'm going to pretend I don't know what's going on, so that if something does come down, I'm not, it doesn't ruin my coaching career.
Yeah, you guys tell me what you need. We'll get it to you. You stay in the locker room and coach, and we'll get you what you need. And if you're that coach, I mean, I don't know, like I'm trying to put myself in that situation where if you're given these resources to work with, and you might think, hey, I mean, how are we getting these resources though? Are you going to really dig into it a lot, or are you going to be like, well, let me get to work and do your work and
Life is
make
good.
the most out of those resources?
Right. Well, but the fact that you're thinking about it means that you have some awareness, right, as to what's
Okay,
going
like
on,
this is
right?
like you're selling, let's say, John. Okay, here we go. You're an import business, right? You got this great deal from China. You're selling these things, making bank. Girls, cars everywhere, right? John living the good life, phone at the dinner table, all the whole works. And then they're like, but these are probably being made by kids in China. But you know what? Doesn't matter because I'm making good margin.
I mean, I
Damn
think,
kids.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like it's been publicized too much to a degree where, if see, there's a reason why Pep sells this underdog thing. I feel like at the back of his mind, he feels like there is an air of legitimacy that's being thrown away from his wins. So he's aware. He's aware that the people are going like, it's because these guys are cheating anyway. It's because these guys have a freaking unfair advantage over every single team in the league. I feel like, listen, in terms of the technicality of the law, I feel like he probably could get away with it. I just feel like on the moral aspect of it, he is just as responsible as everyone else. And your example, Tim, is perfect for him getting away with it. In terms of like if City is implicated in all that, he's definitely gonna get away with it. But for Guardiola, the man, Guardiola, the person, and Guardiola, his conscience, I feel like he just doesn't care enough, or he's just not that decent enough of a guy to give a shit as to whether because let's be real, if this was Klopp, he's not taking the job, right? At first glance, he's not taking the job. So I don't know. I just feel like while I feel like there has to be some sort of implication for him, he's done everything in a way where he's probably not going to get implicated legally, even though at the back of his mind.
Probably not, because it's going to be like I say, like if you're in that business and you're getting it from China, you're like, man, how are they making these things for 50 cents? There's something shady going on here because I'm selling you for $100 over here. But you're going to be like, you know what? It is what it is. I'm giving him the 50 cents. I'm buying the stuff, Gordo, and I'm going to sell for 100. And I have no idea how they're doing it. I don't have anything to do with it. I'm just doing this job. So I don't think even when the punishment comes in, it's probably more to City. Unless, and I really doubt Guardiola is in any kind of negotiations if there's side money being paid and all that kind of stuff.
No. And John playing the long-term sadistic emotional where Pep's like a 75-year-old man in a bed and going like, just it's eating his, what did I do? And that's when John's like, victory.
Can't sleep.
We got him. He's in emotional turmoil for the rest of his life. No, I think it's got to be. You don't want to stir the pot either, because like life is good right now for Guardiola. At the end of every year, he gets to smoke a cigar, sing with Oasis. He's living the life, and so you might. That's a little shady, but also like you said, like, oh, we're like in departments. There's different silos. I don't know what they do. I just do the managing. Yeah. So I'm going to distance myself, which, as John rightly points out, you are as much to blame. But I think that people like him, and this is just me because I'm a Liverpool fan, and they are like the villains of the last 10 years. I don't think people like him lose any sleep over it. I don't see that. I think that they are like the court of law, like what it overrides what people think about you. If I can get away with this legally, then I'm not doing anything wrong, and that's where he draws the line.
Yeah.
But I agree with you.
It could very well be. I mean, he's like, well, somebody's going to coach him, so it might as well be me. And you might be right. The fact that, I think, can't Pep say, John, I've done this everywhere, so it's not like I sucked all my life and I came here with these shady deals. I'm winning. Probably they might have been doing shady deals like Barcelona and Bayern and stuff too. But he's done this in different places, so this is business as usual for him, where he has the club has the riches and they're able to buy who he has in mind and stuff like that. And to his credits, he takes that and he wins, whereas the guy before him or the guy after him sometimes doesn't with the same resources.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Pep is an excellent coach, and he's an excellent coach in getting the most of super teams. I don't know how he's going to work if he's going to do like a Liverpool kind of rebuild with Klopp. First of all, he wouldn't get that job. He wouldn't choose to get that job. Yeah. Secondly, yeah, it's completely different. It's like completely different situations. Yeah, it's a lot of speculation, a lot of conversation on our part, but I guess we'll see, right? If there is something to see, if there is going to be if the charges are actually going to be investigated. And my only thing was with Pep, like obviously I'm just kind of like what Gordo was saying. This is just me speaking personally. Doesn't it ring a little bit hollow? Like if I was Pep Guardiola, right, and at the back of my mind I knew that all my players, were obtained through questionable sources of funds. Whether this goes back to Bayern or Barcelona, I don't know, right? But here in the current scenario of Manchester City, and I'm just applying this in my point of view, I would just be like, like we beat those Klopp guys, we beat Klopp and his boys, but they did it the right way. I didn't do it the right way. Like some of these players, I'm not 100% sure that we got them legally. We got it done, but that feeling at the back of your head that's like Evan, like, oh, bro, you cheated. Bro, you cheated. Come on. Like, let's not get carried away here by our achievements. Like, you fucking cheated and you know it. And it's just growing bigger and bigger and bigger until these, I don't know if this is still a thing, but doesn't Guardiola's contract expire by the time that Man City is going to get investigated? Right? Isn't that like a thing?
Well, there's no like date for the court yet, so God knows.
Right. But then,
I think he leaves anyways. Like if stuff starts to get heated, he might just pull the old like, well, this is like too much for me. I gotta go.
Yeah, there's just a lot of drama here.
Yeah.
I can't manage under these conditions.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm used to.
Yeah, that's kind of like an interesting thing. We'll arrange an interview with Pep as a ask him.
That's going to be in the Patreon. Yeah,
I'm used to Netflix. I'm used to Netflix poking around. I'm not used to FBI being in here while we're giving my team talks. Rummaging through my office while I'm.
Because it would be. Yeah, I mean, he's just going to bail, and I think he would just ride off into the sunset. And I honestly think probably Gordo is right. I don't think he loses any sleep over it. Because he's like, I did my job and I did it well. Even then, it's not like, it's easy to do some of the things because you are competing against, especially like Champions League and stuff like that. And yeah, I doubt he freaking, it's not Guardiola's room to ask where the money comes from. He was tasked with winning the league. And
I don't disagree with that. Yeah. But then at the back of his mind, it still rings a bit, at least for me, it would ring a bit hollow. Right, it would ring a bit hollow. That's just
on the human level. I don't think that anyone needs to see the charges actually confirmed for not just us but the rest of the league to already feel that way. I mean, we already feel that way. I don't need to see the court say, yeah, they are guilty. If there's 115, you're telling me all 115, especially the year after they were banned for 2 years from Champions League.
Yeah,
somebody has already decided they've cheated, right? I don't need to see those come up to already feel the way you're feeling. And I think that's the league and, maybe some of their own fan base.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, and that's on the Premier League, really, to allow it to kind of like float around. And especially meanwhile, they're cracking down on like other people and stuff like that, acting like, like we take the stuff seriously.
Right.
Except when it's City. They have so many lawyers. Are you telling me Premier League doesn't have lawyers like that? They can't keep up with it. They can't say, hey, this is the date. We need the paperwork. And like they can't get stuff from City and stuff. You've got to be kidding me. There has to be. I just don't feel like they view it as maybe important and big as we do. Because, I mean, if you're looking from outside in, like, we make fun of the French league, right? We say it's the Farmers League, PSG, blah, blah, blah. If you're like a fan in France, how do you look at the Premier League? I mean, yeah, it's the best league in the world, best players and stuff like that. But don't you say in your head, it's the same bullshit as here, man. Those, PSG does it here, City does it there.
if we're talking about the raw definition of a farmers league, this league is a freaking farmers league.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm gonna say. Like everyone will go on the new one says like, oh, the bottom teams are more competitive. The relegation fight is incredibly interesting. The mid-table teams have a bigger chance of beating the top teams compared to other leagues. Yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, the bottom line, which is like kind of saying like, oh, we played well, but we lost the game. The bottom line is there's still one team that wins it all 6 of the last 7 years.
Yep.
And that's City. So I don't want to make declarations, folks, but the Premier League is a farmers league, I would say.
And
by
like I
definition,
say, those Chargers can't look good. I mean,
Right.
we're in it, so we're like more. It's almost like we're used to it now because we've been in this situation for years. But I just think of it as somebody outside looking in, saying, "How do they keep doing that?" Like, you know, like there's like a crooked dictator. Like you're looking from far away. You're like, don't they know? Like everybody know. We all know, kind of a thing. So it's kind of an oddball ordeal, and I don't see it's happening. They're like, oh, the court is imminent, but I'll believe it when I see it. And I'll believe it when I see it in terms of punishments, whatever they might be. But real quick, we normally do predictions. I guess let's do this, though. Do you guys even care? And what are you guys going to watch this weekend? Like, what are you watching for? We were talking about this on the Monday podcast. Like in the past, we maybe wanted to see how this guy does and stuff like that. But with all the systems and everything else is changing, that is not really the case. So what are you guys? I mean, I know, John, you're probably watching for Gravenberg, but aside from that, what will you be watching for?
Yeah, I mean, Gravenberg, of course, but then I like how Cody Gakpo's kind of, elevated his game over the last few. Like, obviously, it's lost in the shuffle, right? And I think he's one of those players that will be maximized by Slot. I feel like Slot isn't going to play him around different positions like Klopp is going to be playing. I actually think not Gravenberg. Jeez, it's all Gravenberg in my head, right? I think Gakpo not nailing down a role permanently has, not nailing down a position at least where he's like, okay, I know I'm going to come in here. Like, I know I'm going to be a left winger, sub or not, like starter or sub, I'm going to be a left wing. I think Slot is going to fix that. So I'm really curious to see and expecting him to continue his good form coming into next year. Yeah. And aside from that, maybe Trent, I guess. Like, yeah. And, because Trent, I'm expecting him to move into midfield next year. So, but that's
honestly, the more I find about like Slot's system and stuff like that, and what he's done in the past, it is a very likely thing that he would like play almost as like an 8 in this thing. And honestly, his system, Gakpo, I feel like fits a lot better, almost like a dream setup for a guy like Bobby and stuff like that, who we do not have. But Gakpo is probably the closest, definitely a lot closer than Nunez in that sense. But
and before we switch over to Gordo, hopefully Jadon Danns can get some minutes as well. Like, he seems like.
Having said that, yes, do you even anticipate that, Gordo? Like, because I agree, like I would like to see it, but I just don't see it happening. Let's put it that way.
I don't see it happening. I would definitely
ideal starting 11 and all that good stuff.
I agree with that. I'd like to see it happen. I don't see it happening. What I'm looking for is complete circus, right? I want to check all the. Seriously, we owe Klopp 9 points. We owe him 9 points. I want to see Mo and Klopp kiss on the lips after Mo scores his second hat trick. I swear, this is what I want. This is what we as fans deserve to see. This Klopp deserves this. I want a Gomez goal. I'm like shooting for the moon here. But really, honestly, if Mo scores in every game, and at one of the games he kisses Klopp on the lips, that's good for me. I'll chalk this off as a successful season.
Let me add to that, Gordo. I think Paul Tierney is the official for the Tottenham game. I hope Klopp decks him seriously.
Dude, this will be that would be great. It would be, that is great drama, actually. Like that will get the ratings going. Gordon has taken this from a family show to after hours. I
usually do, right? It's not.
I was more like thinking maybe like Mo takes his shirt off and then Klopp takes his shirt off. And
they skip together. I've changed what I wanted.
That's the weird thing. Normally there is like more, soccer things to watch to build on for the next season. This is going to be we're watching theater. It feels like this season. But should be interesting either way. And God knows, like you were saying with the Qatar World Cup, God knows, we're going to be freaking watching.
Yeah.
So one way or the other, we'll be there. They'll have us by the balls. But we'll be back. The boys will be back tomorrow night for the Thursday night podcast. I'm sure they'll do a lot of the preview and all that kind of stuff as well. And then I'll be back Friday morning with the Fighting Gang. And actually, we're going to have like a 4-man booth, I think, on the Friday morning show. So do join us then.
Sounds
Until
reckless.
then, like I say, as I always say, go grab somebody by the ear and help us spread the name of American Scouser along the land over here. As we increase our numbers and we're adding more content, we're actually working on a bunch of stuff for the Euros, so that should be interesting to nitpick. But until then, have a great Wednesday, everybody, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care.
Take care.